Hello YouTube, it's Peter Gaming Scotland here and welcome back to another video. Hope you guys are well and gaming lots. So in today's video we'll be looking at review scores in games. Are they important or are they not? Or are they really that necessary in today's gaming climate? As always guys, let me know your thoughts down below of what you think about the review scores in gaming, whether you think that they're a waste of time or whether you actually buy into the review scores of certain games. As always guys, let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. But in today's video we'll be talking about review scores. Now this was basically based on the fact that in today's video I wanted to do a video about review scores for a long time, and with The Last of Us Part 2 recently releasing on Friday, I thought, well, let's talk about review scores because it's got over 40 10 out of 10 review scores from different YouTubers and different gaming outlets. So let's discuss not The Last of Us Part 2. I might do a separate video of my review of it maybe next weekend, depending if I get the game finished. I'm about 15 hours in the park section of the game. I'm not talking about The Last of Us 2 today. I'm going to talk about the review scores behind certain games, especially being The Last of Us Part 2. The Last of Us at the time recording has currently got a 96 on Metacritic. Now obviously to me that seems fantastic. I can't or won't go into my experience with the game as I want to save that for a separate video, but the idea of a review or review score is it basically gives the average person in the street that doesn't keep up to date with gaming news or gaming in general an indication whether a game is good or bad based on the review score. So with this information in hand, they can then go on and make an informed purchase of said game. So for example, to look at a game A or game B, if one game's got a Metacritic score, for example, other gaming review websites are available, but for example Metacritic, if one game's got a 96 and one game's got a 50, most people will probably go for the 96 because it's got a higher review score. Now that's okay, I think they have their merit. I think it's a good basis to go by, as in the whole traffic light system. So if a game is terrible and it gets maybe a 5 or below, which is a red score, if it's 6 or 7 it gets an amber score, so it's 6 or 7 out of 10, which is still pretty much a decent score. And also if a game's 8, 9 or 10 and it's a green score, for example. So at the end of the day, read into what the review scores are for each game yourself. I do think having the traffic light system, it does give the average person, as I said, in the street a rough idea very quickly as to what game to buy over another game, especially if there's lots of games coming out in any given day or any given month. Good indicator to maybe make you only buy the good games versus not so good games. But at the end of the day, it's subjective. One person's opinion is going to be totally different to another person's opinion, and whether like different aspects of the game should be graded the same, so whether the graphics out of 5 should be the same as story, or whether gameplay should be all graded equally, and well, that'll probably add to the overall review score. Now granted, one of the big gaming outlets gave Days Gone a 5 or 6 out of 10. Now to me personally, after somebody that's played the game and platinumed it, I wouldn't have given it a 5 or 6. I would have given it a lot higher than that, as I felt the story was fantastic and the story beats were really good. The characters were really good as well. A really good open world zombie game, or freaker game, whatever you want to call it. To me personally, that's the type of game that I like. You know, granted, somebody might not enjoy a generic open world zombie game, so maybe they might give it a lower score, which is totally fine. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion and give the game their own review score. Now the reviews on my channel, I like to give a bit of personal opinion as well as pros and cons of games that I review. I don't, as I say, I'm not a mainstream reviewer. I'm just one guy with a passion for gaming, and I try and review as many games as possible. I don't personally give a game a review score, however, I like to give you the tools necessary, i.e. a bit of positive, a bit of negative, and make through the review, maybe talk about the odd aspect of the game that I like or dislike. But at the end of the day, it's just one man's opinion, and I like to leave it open for you to potentially either look into if that's the type of game you're into, or maybe try it out if you've never really played that game. At the end of the day, it's your opinion. I just want to try and guide you in a fair way as possible, whether something's good or bad in my opinion. You can take it or leave it if you want. It's there for people. At the end of the day, as a gaming channel, I like talking about games on the internet, but I like to, at the end of the day, leave it up to the person watching the video as whether I recommend the game or not. That's just my own personal opinion on review scores. I do think they are important in terms of quickly having information that you can see in terms of a traffic light system, whether a game's good or not. At the end of the day, they're subjective. But quickly, finally, I want to finish on that's all. This has been from my own personal opinion as a gamer, as a consumer. I was recently watching the Play Watch Listen podcast by Alana Pierce, who used to work at IGN, and now does their own podcast every Friday. It's got composer Austin Wintory, video game actor Troy Baker, who's been in a lot of games recently, Uncharted, The Last of Us, etc. And there's also a video game director, Mike Bithell, who is famous for making Thomas Was Alone, a really fantastic indie game. If you haven't played it, check out. I recommend that game. That's really good. So anyway, this week's episode they were talking about review scores and whether they are warranted. Now I can only go by what they're saying from the developer point of view, and they were basically hinting at, depending on a Metacritic score of a game, some staff may or may not get a bonus based on that score alone. Now that would be, honestly don't know what I think about that, if I'm being honest. So for example, if a game got 95 or 96 out of 100, staff will get a bonus based on the review score alone, whereas if you've put a lot of work and effort into a game and it only gets a 50 or 60 out of 100 on Metacritic, you don't get a bonus based on money, based on marketing budget, based on actual systems that you use, maybe based on the talent. Maybe you're a new studio, maybe you've only got 2 or 3 people. Obviously at the end of the day a game's going to get graded regardless if you've got a small indie studio or whether you've got a big publisher. But I do think, I don't know, I just don't like the idea of somebody putting, especially a small studio, putting in all that effort and time into an indie game that only gets a 5 out of 10. So in some ways maybe reviewing each of the different aspects of the game, like graphics, characters, story, gameplay, the same would probably make it easier for indie studios to get their game out there, because at the end of the day they don't have big budgets like the AAA Last of Us and games like it have. They really have to get their game out there basically on release date through word of mouth alone, maybe the odd post on Instagram or what have you. So, and also I was reading quite a that the indie titles from like back in 2008, especially on Steam for example, if you were to release an indie game back in 2008, you would be surrounded by like 50 other games, which is a lot from back then. So a lot of games back then will probably never even heard of, but you probably got a better chance back then of actually being able to get your game out there, get people to actually play your game, etc. Whereas nowadays if you release an indie game, you're probably going to be swamped with the amount of other thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of indie games that release on a daily basis or monthly basis on Steam or Nintendo or the PlayStation Store or the Xbox storefront. So I do think at the end of the day it does come down to personal opinion and whether you agree with certain outlets' opinion. So my suggestion is basically play as many games as you want to play that you enjoy. If you find a good game, like for example Disco Elysium, that got a lot of really good awards and it was a really good indie game from what I've seen online. I've not personally played it, but a lot of people bought into that because it got a good Metacritic score. So at the end of the day, reviews are subjective, and there's my sort of 2 cents from a consumer point of view and from what I heard on the podcast based on the developer point of view. Anyway guys, I'd love to know your thoughts down below in the comments, but that has been my video on gaming review scores, whether they're important or not. At the end of the day, they're subjective, and yeah, that's my opinion. So anyway guys, that has been my video on review scores. Thank you very much indeed for watching. I've been Peter Gaming Scotland, and I'll see you on another video. Thanks very much indeed guys. Bye bye.